Well, hello friends. Welcome to session 5. Session 5 is talking about distortions, secular and Christian distortions and purpose. So in your text, which is Teaching Redemptively, we're looking at chapter 6 and chapter 7. And you should also have by now, or a bit later on, the worksheets that go with this session. Can I say that distortions always happen? But let me just read from the Bible before we begin. I'm looking at Romans 12:12. Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the passion of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, this good, pleasing, and perfect will. And that's what we're on about, isn't it? Transformation. Transformation of our minds, transformation of our hearts, and then transformation of practice. And in education, most of us have been schooled and taught in secular universities. And secular means from this purpose of this video, non-Christian. And secular universities have a different viewpoint and a different moral purpose to a Christian university. A lot of the traditional universities, their platform is the Humanistic Manifesto. And you can look online and read all about that. In the 1930s, a group of men got together and put down what they call the Humanistic Manifesto. In that, it talks about the human rights and the humanness of mankind, and it does not talk about the spiritual formation. So in schooling today, when you look at the platform that policies and procedures are written, they come from a secular perspective. Now, there's common grace there. A lot of the teaching strategies and the thinking is all based in research, and we know that the strategies work. The policies try to be fair, and there's that tension all the time between justice and mercy and judgment, isn't there? And so what the secular universities, the secular education departments are trying to do is to base all of their policies now on the Human Bill of Rights and trying to be tolerant and fair to all people. And that seems to be their goal. So what are we on about? We're on about that this is not what Jesus would want us to do, just solely base all of our education in the humanistic viewpoint, the secularism. What Jesus wants us to do is to look at the spiritual transformation of our students. He wants his communities to be shaped by him, to bring glory to him, and for us to have as our compass and our platform the Bible, and to have as our goal raising students to be disciples of Jesus who will help transform the culture. So we're coming from a very different platform. The platform is to be God's people in this world, to transform culture. Now, from my understanding, and probably your understanding too, there can exist in schools and Christian and church schools a sense of dualism, where the school may say it's a Christian or a church school. You'll see the practices of spiritual disciplines such as chapel services, biblical studies classes, service activities. However, the teaching and learning in the class is shaped by the purpose, goals, and outcomes of the secular curriculum. So you've got on one side, the outside is looking like it's Christian, but when you delve inside the school, you'll see that it's on a secular platform. And that is a distortion that can creep into schools. We need to be very sure that we're using the Bible as our platform. Some of the books that I have found very helpful in looking at biblical policies and curriculum. This one, firstly, is by John Short. It's called Bible-Shaped Teaching. I don't know if you've come across that in your studies, but we can get that from the National Institute of Christian Education, and we'll be very happy at the Excellence Centre here to give you the full references of that. Another book that is a recent addition to our library is Pedagogy and Education for Life, a Christian reframing of teaching, learning and formation by Trevor Kearney. So I'm hoping that you may find that of interest as well. And of course, the good old faithful, which I was first introduced to, was Walking with God in the Classroom by Harrow Van Brumlen, Christian Approaches to Teaching and Learning. A great book, and I've got the 3rd edition. So these are the texts that we can use. If you're thinking, well, how do I do this? To me, these are the how-to books. But can I add that God's desire is to form Christian school communities, not just a Christian school, but a Christian school community where teachers and students are formed into the image of God, that we share together in the Holy Spirit, where leaders, teachers and non-teachers participate in a relationship of the living Christ, where Jesus is the Lord of our schools. And of course, in a Christian school, the Bible is foundational for every generation. It's the story, the interpretive framework of how to live a life of discipleship and provide an education, an effective education, in our historical and cultural times. At no other time in history has society needed Christian education. I'm sure maybe every society said that. But distortions will always exist. But we need to allow God's truth to reveal his way and then follow it. God is a God who keeps his promises, and we can trust him to lead us. Our schools can be centres of excellence, but we need to put our perspective correct. We need to say, this is God's school. God is honoured here. We will be a prayerful, praying community that unfolds and unpacks the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. The entirety of the Bible is what we would want to premise all our teaching. The Bible is a wonderful book, God's instruction book. May I encourage you now to work with your facilitator as you start to unpack the workshop questions. And God bless you, and I'll see you in the next session.